Come, let us explore how authentic meditation is the actual essence of awakening. This morning's lesson is drawn from the 23rd passage of the meditation classic Great Garuda in Flight, composed oh so many centuries ago by the great Buddhist reformer Prahe Vajra. Suddenly, the essence of enlightenment manifests as the supreme meditation. Its appearance is similar to that of a great ocean, as its non-conceptual state is as wide as infinite space. So today's lesson is we're going to begin with the first page. Suddenly, the essence of enlightenment manifests as the supreme meditation. For this to make sense, I'm going to rely on a set of visual aids. Both this text and the visual aids are available for free download as PDFs. So we talked about the supreme meditation, and that's only going to make sense by way of contrast. So let's look at an analog of meditation, or in this context, inferior meditation. And that makes about as much sense as saying that 3 plus 3 equals 7 is inferior to the equation 3 plus 4 equals 7. Anywho, when we rely upon the front of our brain to actively concentrate and actively contemplate, it triggers our amygdala, which functions as the seat of cowardliness, crankiness, competitiveness, and cruelty. However, there is a different way to meditate in cooperation with the autonomic nervous system or spinal cord. It calms our amygdala and gently stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, the essence of compassion and kindness and cooperation. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Let's see how this works. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which could be understood to be the nexus of our sympathetic nervous system. This bad boy has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to help us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly mind's antics of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. So we have evolved to notice the full spectrum of all manner of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. This is the opposite of indulging our controlling tendencies to only notice one thing or nothing. What are we to do with all that which we notice? Well, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the end bits of our spinal cord, kind of like bookends on a shelf. Could be described as the nexus of our parasympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining. And since figures of speech have crept into every culture, think of it this way. As we relax into our exhalation, that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. What's a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, feels non-graspable to the hand. So that's the contrast between lesser meditation, which is merely an analog, and great meditation, which we access by passively cooperating with our autonomic nervous system. But how is that the essence of enlightenment? To answer that, we have to back up a step and ask, what is enlightenment? What if enlightenment was simply the spontaneous, habitual, easy, and effective practice of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? For those of you who may be as lazy as me, you'll be pleased to understand that by passively cooperating with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, the remaining 6 folds of the path are practiced automatically. When we sit in mindfulness and meditation, we cannot help but notice change. We cannot help but notice how every year, so forgive me, we cannot help but notice the coming and going of the seasons. We cannot help but notice the waxing and the waning of the moon. We cannot help but notice the rising and the setting of the sun. We cannot help but notice the swelling and the sinking of our chest as it oscillates between inhalation and exhalation. Or I should say, inhalation and exhalation. The more we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, which automatically gently stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, the more we can't help but experience kindness of intention, communication, conduct, and commerce. The more we passively cooperate with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, the more we notice our choices and utterances and deeds flowing not from calculating contrivance or wild scatteredness, but instead from a centered spontaneity, which is the key to effortless effort of lovingly and peacefully going with the flow. The only way to tap into the mindfulness and meditation of our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems is to cooperate with our autonomic nervous system passively. Thus, there is no need for us to practice the contrivance of concentration or the contrivance of contemplation. All are to needlessly wrestle with our amygdala. All we need to do is cooperate with our autonomic nervous system. You might say, dude, are you telling me not to think? No. What I'm telling you is that there is a sustainable and unsustainable way of doing just about everything, including using the front of our head. And when our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from centered spontaneity, we will find ourselves engaging in analysis and focus in the most sustainable and gentle and beneficial way. Whoopsie. Come on, coordination, don't fail me now. Suddenly, the essence of enlightenment manifests as the supreme meditation. I'll remind you of the phrase, suddenly. Those who take anxiety as their North Star believe in a gradual or incremental approach to enlightenment. In contemporary politics, well, more than contemporary politics, for a very long time, there are two type of people who oppose changes. One is very overt, and they say we are opposed to it because we hate those people. Another will say, oh no, we love those people, but because of those terrible people over there, we can only change incrementally. And that is an analog of empathy. It's cruelty wearing an empathetic mask. Similarly, those who take empathy as their North Star practice sudden enlightenment. One has only to reread the ancient text attributed to the Buddha, where in the second to the last passage, it is explained that one could master the Buddha's entire path in as little as 7 days. This is not an elitist path, it's an egalitarian path that can be mastered by anybody. In appearance is similar to that of a great ocean, as its non-conceptual state is as wide as infinite space. By saying a non-conceptual, that's a metaphor. That's a figurative way of explaining that we don't have to believe our way to nirvana, nor think our way to nirvana. All we have to do is cooperate, realize that nirvana is here. To paraphrase one of my late teachers, paradise is now or never. Paradise does not mean that suddenly everyone, everywhere is now kind and wise. What it means is we're able to cope with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And we're able to find better, more effective ways of protecting others. When we read the Tao Te Ching, we are admonished not to defend ourselves, but occasionally defending others physically. So, in other words, we don't move from fear, we move from love. Its non-conceptual state is as wide as infinite space. So when we get stuck in concentration and contemplation, it's very, very compressing. We can only wrap our minds around things, a very small number of things at a time. The opposite is to be completely vulnerable to all perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. So conventionally, it's a description of being vulnerable to whatever comes up. Instead of painting ourselves into a corner and saying, I can only meditate in one specific circumstance, it's saying, I can practice with whatever life throws at me. I'm not so infantile as to think I will always get what I want when I want it for as long as I want it. I'm adult enough to know that I don't always get my way. Just like the wonderful song from the 70s by the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want. Ultimately, what we notice is this. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever pleasure or pain we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was as non-graspable as vast open space. I think it could be helpful to tie this in a big red bow, or actually with a big red bow, figuratively speaking. One of my teachers used to insist that after hearing complex instructions, it's always good to reduce it to its essence, that we might have a hook to hang our hat on, metaphorically speaking. Let's do that right now. After all my blathering, mindfulness is simply noticing mind's antics, and it's best practiced by simply silently and mentally reciting the verb watch every time we notice that we're inhaling, regardless of whether our breathing is steep or shallow or quick or slow. We're not trying to control it. We're just using our breathing as a metronome. And meditation is simply a fancy word for saying relaxing into mind's non-graspable, fleetingly non-graspable nature. And it's best practiced by silently and mentally reciting the verb rest during each exhalation. Do this for as long as you comfortably can, once every 12 hours or so, and you'll be surprised at how quickly you master this path. You'll be surprised that even though you are still capable of feeling the entire spectrum of human emotions, more and more you'll be less defined by being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, competitive, and cruel. And more you'll spontaneously be flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Having completed our opening lesson, we can now shift gears. It is General Leia Organa's Saturday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. After about 30 seconds of housekeeping, this is the Dzogchen Sunday Lama, Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I could become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let's simply sit in mindfulness and meditation, silently and mentally reciting the verbs watch and rest in coordination with each inhalation and exhalation. If you, like me, are prone to arthritis, you may wish to gently adjust your legs once every 15 minutes or so. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or philosophy, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 5 minutes or so. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In about 10 3/4 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.